Grundy County State's Attorney. I'm here to talk about the 2020 election cycle. And I just got a call from Jeff Brown who congratulated me on a victory. And I won by over 1,300 votes. And our polling data in this election cycle consistently stated I was ahead by 17 points. And when all the early votes, all the votes were cast that were in person today, guess what? I was ahead by 17 points. Then when the mail-in votes came in with the early votes, it closed to 5 points. So it makes you wonder about fraudulent activity during the mail-in voting process when we had multiple polls that showed we're ahead by 17, but a win's a win. 1,300 points in a small county like Grundy County is a very significant win. And I want to talk about the campaign and some of the things that you did know that were going behind the scenes and how this campaign was a campaign like nobody's ever seen. It was a campaign like I was trashed for no reason. My family was attacked, my daughter was attacked, and everybody was under attack throughout this entire campaign. And when the campaign started, is that John Severson, the Morris police chief, couldn't wait to get me out of the state's attorney's office. And everybody wanted to know what was John Severson's problem with me. John Severson's problem with me is that he just simply does whatever the mayor of Morris says. In 2012, I beat John Bates by about 2,100 votes. I got outspent 4-1, and John Bates was relative of Dick Kupchik. Dick Kupchik, the mayor of Morris, has never tried to make my job easy at all. And he basically tells the police chief, John Severson, don't do anything to give Jason a win. If I try and buy the Morris Police Department a canine dog like I did in 2013, it was like pulling teeth to get Brent Dite to take my money for a canine dog because we'd actually be working together to get drugs off the streets. So the Morris Police Department has been a very difficult police department to work with. But the Morris Police Department also has had a lot of civil litigation in federal court, including John Severson being sued for $850,000 successfully in 2011. So there's been a lot of issues with John Severson at the Morris Police Department, and I hope those issues resolve themselves in the Morris mayor's race. And they take a look at the leadership at the police chief position there, because there definitely needs to be a change in leadership. All the excitement about my opponent's campaign was in Morris. The Morris mayor supported him because he worked with Jeff Brown's mother at DNS decades ago. The Morris police chief supported him because he did whatever the mayor of Morris told him to. I took out John Bates. I've never been a fan of the mayor. He's never been a fan of mine. He won't even work with me. Some of the crap that he's pulled off in the city of Morris out at that airport is just eye-opening. And then we had the Morris Police Union. The Morris Police Union endorsed me in 2012 against John Bates. They're neutral in 2016. They endorsed my opponent in this election. And let me tell you about the Morris Police, is that they're never happy. No matter who the state's attorney is, they don't like the position. 17 years of experience. I tell them and explain them the decisions, and they just don't like them. And that's police in a nutshell. The police are always combative with the state's attorney because the state's attorney doesn't always say yes to the cases. So with the campaign, when it started off, is that my opponent had a campaign kickoff party right at my door at the state's attorney's office. It started at 5 o'clock. We had our event down at the Mazan American Legion because I wanted to tell everybody in Mazan thank you for continuing to elect me to office. And I even won Mazan in 2018 when I ran against Jesse White. But my campaign event was at American Legion Mazan. My opponent's campaign event was blocking the door of the doorway in my office. Literally, my employees were trying to get off work at 5 o'clock. He had the podium blocking the doorway off that my workers, so they wouldn't walk through my opponent's crowd, had to go downstairs and go through a secret door in my office just to get out of the office. That's the kind of in-your-face garbage that I've been dealing with for the last 14 months. It was completely inappropriate. When I ran against John Bates, I never thought I was going to win. Even on election night, I knew I worked hard, but I never thought I was going to win. Brown was cocky, arrogant, in your face, and a complete and total liar because the police chief supported him and the mayor supported him and the Morris Police Union supported him. And let me tell you, the Morris Police Union better be in my office tomorrow, give me a conversation and actually listening to what's really going on with my office and not what John Severson says is going on with office. That is an open invitation. So with that being said, Jeff Brown was a complete piece of crap throughout the campaign. Facts didn't matter. He said in the courthouse hallway in Will County that I had punched the coroner, John Callahan, at Cornfest, and I was going to get indicted real soon, and this campaign was a slam dunk for him. And let me tell you, nothing happened with me and John Callahan at Cornfest in 2019. So I knew that my opponent immediately had a problem with the facts. One of the things that really ticks me off is that my wife and I have been together since 1999. We've had a relationship of a lot of good times together, and we have a great relationship. We have a great daughter that's 7 years old now, and we've never got along better. But for my opponent to start a smear campaign through Scott Belt and others, no doubt, of saying that my wife had left the house, my temperament was bad, and that we're no longer together, it couldn't have been further from the truth. So the personal attacks had no business in this campaign. Jeff Brown, you should be ashamed of yourself. Because let me tell you, is that my intel basically said that Jeff Brown didn't have a long-term girlfriend and that it was just somebody that he brought on board for the campaign so it looked like he had a long-term girlfriend. I don't even care what's going on there. I'm not even going to talk about it. But the personal attacks against myself and my family was just out of control. It had no business in Grundy County politics. And to have people start a smear campaign on my marital status when my marriage could never be stronger had no business in this campaign. And when that crap started, all it did is just it was a lie, but it encouraged people to run their freaking mouths. And it had no business in the campaign. My wife didn't deserve that. I didn't deserve that. But when you start running your mouth and making false allegations against me, then other people follow. Like Rob Hendrickson. Rob Hendrickson, who is banned off my social media page for making allegations. I'll just leave it at this. Allegations that I'm involved in criminal activity, that I'm soliciting people outside of marriage for actions. It had no business in this campaign. It was completely false. It was defamatory. And they're trying to put this garbage out. And why would they attack me as a person when I'm a fine, outstanding citizen who's dedicated to my family, dedicated to my wife, and dedicated to my community? It had no business in this campaign. This Brown campaign was just one blunder after another. Is that I knew right off the bat is that he couldn't tell the truth. He couldn't tell the truth if you paid him to tell the truth. Is that he had a house in Plainfield, had a homeowner's exemption on it, just paid the taxes back in September for last year's taxes, claimed an exemption. He only moved to Morris on the east side of Morris on Benton Street to have a campaign crash pad to say, I live in Morris. Well, guess what? He's going right back to Plainfield where he belongs and the voters sent him. Is that the best thing that happened during this campaign was the COVID pandemic? Is that I was a leader, I took charge, and I gave clear direction when the governor wanted to enforce unconstitutional executive orders. But it was one circus after another. When you put out put out some pieces that he's the only candidate that resides in Grundy County. That was a joke. We knew that. I've lived in Grundy County most of my life. He said we gave a convicted felon a firearm back, and that was Patrick Lyons. That didn't happen. We don't even possess firearms. The sheriff's department gave a firearm back to somebody who had a valid FOID card. And then he said we released this massive armed vehicle hijacker, and as a result that we released him, because we're going to have problems with having a speedy trial since our witnesses were out of state and could not be located, is that he went to the McLean County Jail where he had an offense that he was looking at 6 to 30 years in prison and had a parole hold on him. So he said that he was a dangerous to society, even though he's in continuous custody of the police department. And it was just one lie after another lie after another lie. I mean, there's a pending DUI fatal where somebody's got 2 prior DUIs, and somebody said that I made a comment that it was going to be hard to get a conviction and person might only do 2 years in prison. And that's complete false. That's not anything that my office has said. And that when you're a victim of a DUI offense, like I was when Alan Aldrich hit the vehicle that I was in with my wife and kid in 2016, and I had to rip the guy out of the car, and he got 3 years in prison because he had 2 prior DUIs and was revoked for 28 years and had no business being behind the wheel and was a .40 with marijuana in his system 2 hours after the crash, is that I take the DUI as serious. And one of the things attacking me on handling DUIs is newsflash, is that if we prosecuted every DUI without amending the case to reckless driving and treatment, society would be in more of a danger if we just fought every DUI. Is with a lot of new officers at the city, a lot of new officers at the county. Not every case is going to be a slam dunk. Not every case is going to be a winning moment. But when we don't have those winning moments, we work out plea agreements. One of the false things that kept on coming up during this campaign is that the whole WCSJ, which I say the WTMZ headlines about clickbait, where they just click on something and probation, Jason, everybody's getting probation. The judges sentence offenders. More than 95% of the cases nationwide are resolved by a plea agreement, and the judges set the real estate market. The cases are only worth what our judges are willing to sentence them to. And I don't care what sentence they get in Will County. I don't care what sentence they get in any other county. The sentence that matters is what the judges want on our cases. And we know our judges inside and out. And this whole campaign was just the biggest smear campaign. This frivolous lawsuit that was filed by Bob Geiger 2 weeks before an election to let me to require me to unban Rob Hendrickson only and nobody else was a complete joke. I told Joe Hosey what was really going on is that I was getting threatened by somebody. Robert Hendrickson was charged with intimidation of me based on emails that were sent to me. The guy was threatening me. But if you read the Morris Herald News, I'm violating somebody's First Amendment rights for blocking somebody who's engaged in abuse on social media. I blocked him for a purpose. He demonstrated over the last few days why he was blocked. People were telling me, why don't you block that guy? Well, the judge said, let him just go to town. So we just had to take it and let somebody go to town and say whatever they wanted. And his main complaint is that our highway department doesn't do what he wants to do. And the state attorney's office, by statute, represents the county highway department. So we got some lunatic who's threatening me, my family, telling me to commit suicide, completely out of control. It has been terrible. But it's been terrible because that is a situation that my opponent created. If he doesn't have to tell the truth, why does anybody else have to tell the truth? He lowered himself to standards that we have just never seen. So we are so happy that this campaign is over. My wife is so happy that we are past this and I can focus on the job. And it was an honor and a privilege to successfully prosecute the first homicide in Grundy County in 20 years. There's more cases to come. And I look forward to successfully resolving cases in the courtroom, in the county boardroom, and working things out. Dana Weiss, thank you very much. Love everything that's going on out at the racetrack. I hope I'm able to attend that event here in mid November, which is the racetracks having a banquet for the drivers. So I look forward to that. Uh, I mean, it's just I want to comment on some of these comments here. Awesome, congratulations. Not a single law enforcement agency supports you, Rob. That's completely wrong. Is that a lot of law enforcement just says, "Hey, we'll work with whoever the state attorney is." I just went over to Tom Best's office house last week and played some Les Pauls. Is that the Cole City Police Department was neutral. The Grundy County Sheriff's Department was neutral. The Grundy County Sheriff's Department was neutral, even though they supported Burke Shoup without even having a meeting with their union. Manuka, they were neutral. No law enforcement agency supports me. There's a lot of people in law enforcement that support me, so that's completely an inaccurate statement. And I'm just not going to answer any more questions from Hendrickson. You're just a real piece of work. The only politician that says and follows through with help for addiction in adults is that I established the first mental health court in the county in 2014 as a way to divert low-level criminal offenses that are felony in nature to get people treatment for substance abuse and mental health problems. And we've taken the stigma away from mental illness, and we've been able to get people in treatment rather than incarceration, and that has been quite the change from the past, but it's been very successful in treating people. Is that the comments just keep on popping up? And again, Rob Hendrickson, your marriage isn't strong, Jason. We're going to be hearing from you in court in defamation. I mean, you're a complete piece of work. Yeah, I'm a criminal, Anna Burns. Yeah, that's a burner account. I'm a liar. Yep, whatever. You're a piece of work. I'm just scrolling through some comments. Mindy Hudak, are you still down in Texas? Where I'm sure we'll be getting your dad's letter for Christmas here soon enough. Sharon Lewis, I'd like to tell you thanks for everything that you did for me when I was a young traffic assistant in Kankakee County. It was some rough times without getting paid much and a lot of work there, but I do miss all my friends in Kankakee County. Are all the mail-in ballots counted? There's less than 1,000 votes outstanding. My lead's by more than 1,300 votes. And like I said, the mail-in ballots were really concerning. Is when our polling data said 17 points 6 weeks ago, then 17 points 2 weeks ago, and it's 17 points on everybody that voted today, and it narrowed to five. That's something that really needs to be taken a look at about how accurate that is. Congratulations to your dad, Harper. I mean, thank you very much, Vicky. I mean, it's been a really rough year with all the personal attacks. Jeff Wold, appreciate everything that you did as Shanahan police chief. Tried two felonies and lost on both. Rob, you're just a real piece of work. Is that we got a second degree murder conviction just within the last 6 weeks. Bev, thanks for hopping on tonight. Anna Burns, wow, you're such an elegant person, calling me a liar. So with the campaign that I really felt uncomfortable about tonight as we're sitting here today is that with COVID, everything was pretty much out of my control. Is that in September, October, I walked Shanahan and Manuka. I walked every street in Shanahan and Manuka to get signatures, and then we turned in the signatures. I turned in a lot of signatures, and when March rolled around and the weather started breaking, I started walking South Wilmington, and I walked South Wilmington for 5 days, and COVID hit. And the challenging part of this campaign is that I always ran a door to door campaign, and I wasn't able to go door to door since March. My opponent did because he wanted to be a super spreader, and I couldn't be in a situation where if I walked door to door and I was exposed to COVID 19, that I'm in quarantine for the first homicide trial in the county in 20 years. I couldn't risk it. I mean, yeah, you need to go out and campaign, but the challenge on this campaign is I wanted to go out, I wanted to meet the voters. I would have definitely won by a lot more votes if I was able to go out and talk to people and correct all the wrong stuff that was being said with me. But with COVID 19, I didn't think it was socially acceptable to walk doors. So that made the campaign a lot more challenging. My opponent wanted to go out, and he did go out, and I just thought it was poor taste. The one criticism that I really didn't care for in this election was is that basically in a mail piece, my opponent said, "Well, voters rejected me in 2018 in Grundy County. I lost to Jesse White by 1,000 votes in Grundy County in the last election, in a statewide election. We didn't spend a dime in Grundy County. And one of the conversations we talked about was, do we spend 50 grand in Grundy County, beat Jesse White in Grundy County 60-40? So in 2020, they say, Jason beat Jesse White in Grundy County. Don't waste your time. No, we sat on the pile of money that we had from the Illinois GOP and raising that Secretary of State race because we knew it was going to be a non-competitive race. So when my opponent says that I couldn't even win my own county against Jesse White, we didn't have the finances from Rounder's group to do it. So since we didn't have the finances to do it, we weren't going to spend our 50,000 on that campaign. We saved the money for this campaign. So that was we had no problem raising money after COVID-19, and I took on the governor. I mean, people were just had a very good appetite of putting me back in office. Congratulations, Jason. I mean, thanks for Greg Stewart and everything that you've done. You're the best. We love you. I mean, I appreciate that. Mary Ike, your son served on my grand jury a couple years ago. Did a great job on the grand jury. I know you're a really good person with the taxpayer watchdog. Is that, I mean, when you look at my budget over the last 8 years, I've never been over 800,000 on the budget, and I inherited a budget of more than 800,000. Is that I've been really easy on the pocketbook. Every law enforcement endorsement is for Jeff Brown. Yet again, not accurate. There's a lot of departments that were simply neutral. There's a lot of officers that knew that they just didn't want to create bad blood. They wanted to work with whoever the state attorney's office was. We love you. I appreciate those comments because it's felt like a lot of hate lately. Brian Elias, we love going to the Grundy County Speedway on Friday nights and just watching the races. The people of Grundy County have spoken. Yes, they have. In the last sheriff's race, it was a tight race. It was 150 votes. This was a decisive 1,300 vote victory, which I said if it weren't due to COVID, that victory would have been much much larger. Thanks for everything you've been doing for Grundy County. I mean, I've done a lot. I've made a lot of sacrifices. Ardith Hatch, minute clerk from room 109 in Kankakee. Miss everybody over there and miss all the good times and miss just everybody at Kankakee adequately prepared me to do the job. Is that I loved everything about Kankakee except the paychecks. I mean, I really miss a lot of people over there. I always said that if I had to go to private practice, Kankakee felt like home to me. I mean, I when I got hired in Kankakee, I'd only been there twice in my life, but I mean, it really became home in the 8.5 years that I worked there. I mean, I still have close contacts with everybody in Kankakee. I mean, everybody just treats me with so much respect over there, from the law enforcement to the elected officials to former bosses. I just really appreciate my followers in Kankakee because they see me come from a 26-year-old assistant state's attorney to now a three-time state's attorney, which is a very big accomplishment. They always say that in smaller counties, like any county under 50,000, you're essentially term limited to 2 terms because after 2 terms, you prosecuted everybody. So everybody's not happy with your job. We got the Morris missile popping on here. Alex Clubb, alderman in the third ward of Morris, doing a great job out there. We also did a great job of wrecking some cars out of the spectator races. And guy says, how does somebody stab a guy 36 times and get a second degree murder? Well, perhaps he should have been present for the jury and saw the instructions where the jury was instructed that if the victim substantially provokes an attack and the offender defends himself and his self-defense is unreasonable, that's second-degree murder. That's what our jury found on that particular case. How you speak is so unprofessional. Get it together. Well, let me tell you, it's in my house at 11 o'clock at night, and I'm talking off the cuff. I don't talk with prepared notes like other politicians, so I don't care what you think about my professional status. I'm not in office. I'm not in the courtroom. You're not somebody I need to impress. This guy Rob is nuts. Yes, he is. Seems like he's making threats that you're going to make sure you end up sick or missing. Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, just keeps on going. I mean, the reason I'm letting this go with Hendrickson is that you get to see what I get to deal with on a daily basis. I deal with a lot of people that are wild, out of control, and never happy, and goofy, and mentally unstable. And you're getting to see it on my Facebook tonight. Matt Melvin, appreciate everything you do at the county. I'm glad we got to steal you from Mack and Associates. Bubba, wait, congratulations. I mean, again, I mean that's just it. I love serving on the Habitat for Humanity board. I've been on the board for 9 years now. I've been told that 10 years I'm term limited for being on the board, but I think that the Grundy Three Rivers Habitat for Humanity has a very soft spot in my heart, and I'm going to continue to help Habitat for Humanity find lots to help build affordable housing. Congrats, Jason. You're right. I mean, all you're doing is seeing people just threaten me. I mean, that's beautiful. Carissa Floody and Brian Floody, thank you to the family and appreciate all the support you provided this year. Is that Pritzker started the attack on the small business owner. And when Pritzker did the attack on the small business owner and did the close down order after 30 days, he doesn't have the emergency authority to do it. So I talked to Brian Floody at Dynamic Fitness today, and I wanted to make sure, is your business going to stay open? Because, as the governor has previously said, the executive order does not have the enforcement of law. It's a policy suggestion. And I suggest that Grundy County people should not follow the governor's unconstitutional executive orders. I think that the small business owners in Grundy County need to remain open. They need to defy the governor's orders and let their people work, because non-essential workers are essential. The gyms need to stay open. The bars and restaurants need to stay open. And until Pritzker can show that there's a nexus between people getting sick at a health club, you don't shut them down. He's got to show a nexus between people getting sick during indoor dining, even though businesses are taking reservations for contact tracing, even though they're limiting the capacity of the bars and restaurants, even though they're requiring people to wear face masks while unless they're eating while sitting at tables. That's something that we're absolutely going to take Pritzker on in the next year, because this pandemic, we are pandemic out. We are pandemic fatigued, and looking at the small business owner, screw the governor's executive orders, keep on doing business. Work with your insurance companies, work with your landlords, and work with the business licenses and the people that issue them, and you should remain open. And that's another thing, is that why were all these mayors, like the mayor of Shanahan and the mayor of Manuka, supporting my opponent? And why did any mayor take a public position for me? Because they were pissed off about, I said, defy the governor's executive order, keep your business open. So guess what happens? Dan Duffy gets a call at the village of Manuka and says, all these business owners said, Jason said open up. We're not going to let them open up in Manuka. So does Dan call me at the state attorney's office and say what's going on? No, he called the sheriff who used to work at the Manuka Police Department and said, give Jason the business. You know, we don't appreciate the positions that he's taken on these important issues. Is that people are going to lose their businesses, or they're going to defy the governor's unconstitutional executive orders and remain open. And when I told people to remain open and the city hall got those phone calls, the mayors weren't happy. That's the backstory on that. Now do you know what was going on? And when my opponent's mail program was so poor that anybody that knows me knows that I'm one of the hardest working people they've ever met. My opponent said in a $10,000 mailer, half the mail piece is that I'm lazy. When I ran for Secretary of State in 2018, I worked full time during the day. I campaigned full time at night and on the weekends. I worked more than 80 hours a week. And the governor at the time, Bruce Rauner, said Jason Helland is one of the most hardworking person I've ever met. Erica Harold, Attorney General candidate, Republican nominee for Attorney General, Miss America 2003, said Jason Helland is one of the hardest working person I ever met. If anybody ever talks about me in criticism, being a lazy person is not a criticism I've ever had. It came from a person that doesn't even know me, a person that doesn't even practice law in Grundy County. That was another false statement. Lazy. Never been a problem with me. Everybody knows that I work very hard. And I don't know what the future brings. I don't know what the next 4 years brings. I don't know what I want to do with my life. I know that I'm going to dedicate my life to Grundy County. Being a 3-term prosecutor is a dream. I'm glad that I get to serve my community, live in my community, raise my child in a safe community like the Mazan Verona Kinsman schools and the Seneca schools. Is that I appreciate everything that MBK's done for my family. My kid's in second grade now, and my wife's working at the Coal City schools. And I appreciate the opportunity to get to continue to serve such a great community. I don't know what opportunities are going to come in the future. Obviously, I'll look at other opportunities if they come out there because people have asked me to do other things in life. And I don't know if I can continue to take the abuse, the lies, the smear tactics, and that's exactly why my opponent lost. Is all he did is attack, 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 smear, 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 and never said this is why he's the best candidate. And he never could tell anybody why he's the best candidate because if you looked at his resume and looked at my resume, he doesn't get a job interview. So it's just been a really rough time. It's been rough on the family. I mean, one time I made a comment to my mother-in-law that politics is for sleazeballs. And my mother-in-law said, then I don't know why you're in politics because you're not a sleazeball. And I thought that was kind of a funny comment coming from a non-political person, but it's the truth. I mean, it's the smear tactics have been tough, and when your opponent's just a complete liar, and as a lawyer, you're only as good as your word. And this is my comments to my opponent. You're only as good as your word. If you want to make stuff up about people, you're only as good as your word. You're not going to make it far in the legal profession by being a liar. When I say something, I say it with conviction, and you know it to be true. And you can trust what I got to say. So happy, so excited to see the win. So am I. I'm just so glad to be done. I'm just so glad to focus on other cases. I'm focusing on a homicide case that happened in Verona. I want to get that case ready for trial. I got so many goals the next 4 years is that I just want to focus on my work and I don't want to constantly be looking over my shoulder. And I told people, signs don't vote, endorsements don't vote. I'm endorsed by the people 3 times over. And we got some big plans in the coming years. I mean, there's people here that I just know have been following me for Rob, what law enforcement agency endorsed me? I didn't ask for a single endorsement. Jeff Brown would have got endorsed by the sheriff's department union in a heartbeat, but Jeff Brown basically complained to Vic Elias that the procedures that they had for having a meeting with the union wasn't fair, even though we had the same rules. So they canceled the endorsement session. So, Rob, Jeff fumbled the ball on that one. All 3 judges hate you. Yeah, I get it. Whatever. I'm not a people pleaser. I'm a leader, and sometimes leaders got to take tough positions. Glad to see the yard signs don't tell the whole story. Absolutely. And I said it before, and I'll say it again. As Jeff Brown's running for the mayor of Morris, Jeff Brown's entire campaign was focused on Morris, walking doors in Morris, Signs everywhere in Morris. As soon as you got out of Morris, the signs disappeared. There wasn't a bunch of signs in Coal City. There wasn't a bunch of signs in Gardner. All the signs were put up by goons like Mike Serena. And Mike Serena is a real piece of work. How do I know I'm going to win an election? Because Mike Serena endorses my opponent. So all it takes is a handful of goons to put out some signs, and it just doesn't tell the story. And like I said, unfortunately, generally from walking doors, I'd have 1,000 sign locations from walking doors. This time, I wasn't able to walk doors. I wasn't able to get the sign locations that I normally get. Scott Belt doesn't like you either. Well, you know what? I think Scott Belt's a piece of work. Scott Belt was John Bates' law partner. Scott Belt rips off the city of Morris. Scott Belt annually charges more than $300,000 a year to represent the city of Morris as a part time lawyer. That's a joke. I mean, he's made a career milking the taxpayers. David Stevenson, thanks for everything that you've done. Didn't even see her name on the ballot. Didn't even go down far enough. Danny Black. I mean, I want to just thank the Black family for everything that they've done. Is that I knew Rich from when I worked at the Eagle Country Market for 8 years. I went to law school with Tim at John Marshall at the same time. Met Brian when I came to Morris, and everybody from the Black family is just so well respected. Is that I really respect everything that Danny and and Sean and everybody's done for my entire family, because it's been really appreciated. When there's only been 9 states attorneys since 1932, and I've got to have the distinction of being one of them. I really appreciate Augie Black and the 16 years that he served as state's attorney from 1948 to 1964. As I know that the story from Brian was that the reason Augie quit being state's attorney after 16 years was with so many kids, he finally needed to make some money. So he needed to get into the private sector. So yeah, I need to impress you, Kelly. I'm an elected official and I'm acting goofy. No, I'm talking off the cuff. And that's what people love about me, is talking off the cuff. Rob Hendrickson, let's address that. Is any expenditure through my office goes to the Law and Justice Committee, my oversight committee. And Rob made a false statement that I maintained a personal vehicle with my decals on it with county taxpayer funds, brake jobs, and fixed up the whole car with taxpayer funds. Completely false. That's yet another defamatory statement. Is that you're just a piece of work. Is that the only reimbursement I've ever got from the county is for mileage to meetings, and I don't even submit mileage to half the meetings I go to, and it's just the longer meetings that I got to drive to. And the reason the state's attorney's office doesn't have a county car, because I don't want to pay to plate it, insure it, maintain it, and purchase it. So, Rob, you're completely wrong. FOIA my records, and a FOIA isn't going on Facebook and saying, oh, yeah, you took some money to fix up a car that you're driving. Completely false. I produced all those documents to the newspaper and showed that you're a complete loser and a liar on that. Congratulations, Jason, Kevin. Thanks for everything that you've done. I mean, it was just when Turtles opened back up after the first shutdown. I mean, it was just such a great opportunity to go into Turtles, eat a Plonzik tenderloin, and just support the waitresses. And I left the first time we went. My wife and kid met me for lunch. We went into Turtles. I left the waitress a huge tip. She said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yeah, you haven't been working. You haven't been working for a long time, and you deserve everything that I can give you." So, I mean, I appreciate everything that Kevin has done for the community. I appreciate Turtles Tap. I appreciate the small business owners, and it's been a rough year. And I appreciate that interview that we're able to do, that more than 20,000 people saw, that we were trying to get the floodgates to open and give people assurances that they could remain open, and that the state attorney's office wasn't going to uh, do anything against them. And I'm just going to continue to scroll down here. Okay, we'll stay open. There's nothing that I'm going to do. Is that I recommend to the restaurant industry, the small business industry, file a lawsuit against the governor like they did up in Kane County, get a temporary restraining order to prevent your business from being shut down, and make the governor show you the science. How is your business, when run appropriately, a risk to safety if people are social distancing, people wearing masks, and you're limiting the crowd in a restaurant? They simply can't do that. I mean, very common statement is that I was told by somebody that there are a lot of people that had my back that just were not comfortable with being public about it, but they liked everything they seen and they liked everything they heard. And you know what? I say it as it is. It had a leader leads, followers follow. And during the pandemic, I was a leader. Let's see what else we got here. I don't even know what you're doing. Anthony Squatty, I don't even know what you're talking about. Don't even care. I won. Smear campaigns. Let me address that. Is that we were getting smeared left and right. A lie was put out, we'd respond. I'm Jeff Brown was the only resident running for Grundy County. Well, we proved that he's a resident of Plainfield who had a campaign crash pad on the east side of Morris. All my campaign pieces, when you looked at the Coal City piece that a individual posted and said, I wish every campaign piece looked like this, is that I'd read them all because it looked like a Christmas card. Our entire mail program was about accomplishments. We put out a 10-page tabloid, a newspaper with all my accomplishments over my career that outlined everything from beginning to end and what I plan on doing the next 4 years. My mail campaign was 95% positive about it's not about somebody walking into the polling place and saying that, well, I'm not happy with either candidate. We had a lot to offer. And we offered that through our mail program. It was only through the social media that it was getting insane because we had to respond to things. Because if we didn't respond to the smear campaigns, well, then it must be true. Block Rob like I did, so peaceful. Yeah, well, there's litigation pending on that. Resign, not in a million years, buddy. Erica Binder Jennings. I've seen the post from your son. I helped him get into the military. I hope that he really enjoyed the time in my office. But my office is open at any time for anybody to walk in for any purpose. Do you want some fries with that? Yeah, we'll see what happens in the future about these social medias. That when you have an account and I'm a public official, but I have a Facebook page that's merely paid for by a political action committee, Friends of Jason Helland, to sponsor posts and to put posts up. And all of a sudden, for the first time in the history of Illinois, that's ruled to be a public forum and that people can come in and say whatever they want to do. I look forward to resolution of that in court. There's no appellate court or Supreme Court decision saying what I did was wrong. Well, let's see. There are so many comments here. I'm just scrolling. Jason Greaves, appreciate all your support through the years and your comments about some of the stuff out of the racetrack. I mean, we had a great time at the Grundy County Speedway this year, and we can't wait to be going back next year, especially the spectator drags. I'm definitely trying to get a Taurus SHO squad car for next year. Maybe we'll shoot some nitrous on it. We'll see. Man, this just goes on and on. I mean, Randy Gordon, longtime friend, appreciate all the support through the years. I know there's been some rough times, and any time I've wanted to bounce some ideas, Randy's always there as he is for anybody. And Randy, you just got a heart of gold. Seeing if that's the last comment. So I'm gonna end this video. But as I said, I just look forward to a productive 4 years. I look forward to serving the people of the Grundy County to the best of my ability. And my family's happy that we're past the ugliness out of the 4 campaigns that I've run. I've never had so many unjustified personal attacks in my life that were simply not based on reality. So have a good night. We'll see what happens. I'm going to turn on the TV and see what else is going on with other races. But I look forward to talking to people in the future. If you want to get a hold of me, electhelland@gmail.com. I think we're going to be taking down the Facebook page for a while because I'm just not going to deal with the negativity. And the negativity has been unreal. It's had a very uh, bad impact on my family, and I'm not going to tolerate it. And we're going to see what's going to happen. So have a good night, and I appreciate your support.